Buyers need to marinate. They need to see things at least 3 to 7 times before they're going to actually take action on something.
And I think that goes for B2B, but also B2C.
Absolutely. Repetition, being clear on what you stand for are so important to making that opportunity come to life for them.
Yeah.
Welcome to Manage Chaos Podcast, where we give you the startup business rundown in less time than it takes for you to get to work.
I'm Katrina Purcell, and we are back with Jenn Ravalli. Jenn is a go-to-market executive with more than 15 years of experience building scalable growth engines across startups, scale-ups, and global enterprises. Jenn, that sounds exhausting. We need to get more into this. But Jenn also just launched Maverick Meridian, which is her new company that is doing go-to-market advisory. The important thing here is that without money, you don't have a company. Without customers, you don't have a company. So when you come in and there's messy, rapid growth, it's chaotic, everything's everywhere, no one has an official hat they're wearing 10. What do you do to help them break down those complexities into tasks that people can actually do? Like, what does that look like?
The first thing is I'm going to go through and assess where everything is. So do you have the cardinal
in people's
pieces?
Heads, Jenn.
Yes.
Not written down.
And that can happen really fast, right? You can seem fine one day, and then the next day it's a giant mess. And it's usually there's a lack of process that's been put in place. So how do you fight the unwillingness to build process? By making it lightweight, but also doing things like start, stop, and continues, both together and separately, so that people can really say, here's where I think we're wasting time and resource, and make it a way that you can bring it to the front without it feeling like it's accusatory. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a good first step. Every team I've walked into, I've had them do a start, stop, continue as part of that assessment process so that we can really start to see what's going on that shouldn't be.
We'll break that down a little bit. So a start, stop, continue is really like, what things should we start doing today that we're not already doing? What should we stop doing? So we're doing it right now, but it's not bringing us any value. We should stop it. And what are the things we should continue doing? We feel like they're bringing fruit. We feel like they're helping us. So we should continue them.
And it's a very simple way to get everybody on the same page.
Big fan, big fan. Okay, so let's say we've started with our stop, start, continue, and maybe everyone's on the same page except the founder.
Mm-hmm. That is where working together can really make the difference on whether we're going to be successful or not. Now, you have to always think about the fact that this is their baby and you want to support them. So how do you make the case for change, but also continue to support where they want to take their vision of things and how they get there? They may thrive in chaos. And in that event, you have to figure out how do you separate that from the people that need to do the day-to-day execution to make sure that they can get it done. So sometimes it's where do you want them spending their time and how do you help them get better at spending their time in the right places where chaos isn't a problem or it may be an asset versus where you want to really see systematic change and scale come into play, which is often around how often are we doing certain things, what are the requirements of those things, and then starting to build rinse and repeat in cohesion. My toolkit is usually we are going to do less, not more.
Yes.
Because if we do less things really well, those things will tell us what's working and what's not.
A lot of times when I go into clients, it's much more about subtracting than adding. It's how do you prioritize? You don't have 15 priorities. If you have 15 priorities, you have no priority. So how do you get them to those top 3 things that are the true priorities? But sometimes that can be pretty difficult because everything feels so important in the moment when everything feels like it's on fire. But one of the things that I know you and I have both experienced is the concept of we have a CRM. Mm-hmm. We're very happy with our CRM. It's different from company to company how they've set it up. And my favorite is we paid for this list and we just dumped it into the CRM.
Yeah.
And now we have this great list in our CRM. But it's so ugly.
Your CRM is the first thing that's going to break when you start to see rapid change and need to start to think about scale. Mm-hmm. Dirty data, I've never walked into a company without it. Even very large companies, in some cases, I've spent 6 months cleaning up the data because suddenly you've had a little success. You have the opportunity to buy some tools that we just must have that import data. But is it the right data? If you are in a very specific vertical, it may not have great data. You want strong data that makes your case, and you want it to not be duplicated 50 million times because suddenly you can't see what's happening. You can't see what is real. You can't see if a deal is true. Your accounts, opportunities, contacts, and leads are not well connected, and everything feels like it's a mess when there may be greatness in there, but you can't see it because you have the same account 5 times in your CRM with 6 opportunities attached to each. What is the real opportunity and who is the real buyer?
With 7 contacts, and half those contacts might not even work there anymore.
Exactly.
Or be the person who'd actually be making a purchasing decision, which is my favorite.
And usually when you buy these tools, that's usually what happens is you get everybody and their mother from the company that is now in your database. And suddenly you're like, oh, it's got to be a great account. Look at all these people I have. Versus who actually is buying your software.
The strategy is really only as good as the people executing it. I mean, I think this is something, even in business school, they tell you, right? You can have an A+ strategy, but if you get a B at executing, you're going to get a C in the overall, right? It's really about the execution. So what separates a high-performing go-to-market team from sort of a mediocre go-to-market team?
So the first thing is the ability to translate strategy into execution. And that means that you're not just hiring the right executive team, you are hiring the right middle layer. So who can now take and specialize and do the things that need to be done, understand enough about strategy to direct teams to be able to do things. Now, a good test is if you went 3 levels down in the organization, could they articulate your strategy? Could they articulate who your ideal buyer is? Could they articulate how we think about sales cycles? If they can't, then you have not done your job and that team cannot execute. They're just going to be taking orders versus being able to take action. Because the more that you set the table for them and they understand their job, then they can act without you and everybody becomes much more successful. There are things you need to look at and there are things that you should never have to look at. And being able to get really good at that is what creates a high-performing organization and team. The other thing is cross-functionally, deep respect for the individual players, a role in hiring when there is new folks coming on. Like when I'm in a marketing seat, I don't hire anyone in marketing without them meeting with sales and product and customer success to make sure that there's going to be really strong alignment and that that person is adding something to the equation. The other thing is when I sit in a sales seat, I can take that team and make sure that they're demonstrating that success to the rest of the organization. There's different ways to be able to do that. But what really sets it apart is it's aligning daily and making sure that we can finish each other's sentences. When you've articulated that, your entire team starts to both understand that they have your trust and that they're able to then execute on the things that they need to, and that if they do make a mistake, that they're not afraid to tell you that there was a mistake. Because one of the biggest things that you'll see on teams that don't perform is that they are so afraid of making a mistake that they're constantly trying to cover their ass. But you're either bonding or you're breaking. And when you can build that psychological safety in across the entire organization, everybody can work in a way that they couldn't possibly. It means you also don't need to be in 50 million meetings. You can start to do things asynchronously that most organizations today just can't. You know, you end up spending most of your time sitting in meetings versus actually doing the work.
Right.
And you want to be able to have a really healthy opportunity for people to be able to sit down and do the work. And the only way they can do that is if they understand their job and what is expected of them.
Right. And another thing that I think is really important that you mentioned there from the psychological safety standpoint is that if they are too afraid to fail, they're never actually going to try anything hard. They're never going to offer new ideas. They're never going to get more creative. It's something we talk about on lots of episodes because I think we've created this culture of being scared, and because we're scared, we don't innovate anymore, and we're not out there doing new things. That's why people then say, I'm going to go work at the next startup where I can try new things and I can fail and it will be fun. And so I think it's so important for leaders and organizations to really promote trying new stuff, to promote failing within safe spaces.
Absolutely. The other thing, and I know you and I have talked about this before, is when you start to think about risk, what is a healthy amount of risk that you can give everybody the ability to say, I can take that. I know you talk a lot about a closed door versus one that can be reopened. That's true here too. Where can you give somebody the ability to take action that maybe they've never been able to do before and grow them as a result of it?
Right. And then that becomes your succession pipeline,
Exactly.
right? For your actual leadership. So a different style of pipeline, but how do you grow the bench of your leaders? There are sometimes massive disconnects between a board's grand vision and the daily tasks of the team on the floor selling. How do you help leaders translate that high-level vision from the board, which is, I just want to see that ARR number through the roof, down to the practicality of the team who's actually delivering against it?
It's amazing how often things that are really, in some ways, a very simple math exercise aren't actually executed well or ignored. If you look at prior results, you can usually get a pretty good idea of what it takes to build to the plan that somebody is looking for. But most organizations make the mistake that they build their plan top down instead of building it bottom up. And having an executive team that is comfortable having the conversation with the board of, when I do this from the bottoms up, it doesn't connect. And being able to negotiate that is something that doesn't happen enough. A lot of times people sit there kind of silent, take it and say, okay, now I have to figure out how to do it. But you're setting yourself up, you're setting your reps up, you're setting your whole team to fail, when the best way for you guys to be successful is to set a reasonable plan that's going to get you one step closer to what that amazing opportunity is to make an exit. But if you're not very clear about that in the first place, then people just ask why it hasn't happened yet. So being able to then step by step say, this is how we performed last year. We can get this level more efficient this year. The other thing is turnover. You can build tons and tons of quota, but if you don't have the people to actually execute that quota, then you're not going to be able to be successful. So you need to be thinking about reasonable changes and being able to articulate both up to the board, but also down to your team in terms of what's expected of them. It's not about loading it on less people to make it up. It's about saying, this is what I expect from you, and I'm not going to change that expectation. You're going to continue to build towards it. That really helps them execute well versus feeling like their pants are on fire and they need to make up for something that wasn't their fault in the first place. But you have to drive that clarity and focus into the organization. A campaign, to me, is a 12-month investment that is focused around 3 to 4 key themes that follow you through the entire buyer journey. Now, a lot of people will say, I have 25 campaigns running at any time. A campaign is not an event, or a campaign is not 50 emails that went out. A campaign is a well-connected system that goes from introduction to a buyer through the close and through the growth of that buyer through the customer success lens. And a lot of people don't show that. And so boards ask for more versus letting that plan come to fruition. Investments you make now will never pay off in less than 90 days. And so you also have to set a really good understanding between the team that's executing and the board that this is what you can expect this to actually come to life versus, hey, we started running that yesterday. Do I have any leads yet?
That's always my favorite. Just started. How's it doing? Like when you met a guy at a bar and the next day your friends are like, so are you going to marry him? No, we just met.
Buyers need to marinate. They need to see things at least 3 to 7 times before they're going to actually take action on something.
And I think that goes for B2B, but also B2C.
Absolutely. Repetition, being clear on what you stand for are so important to making that opportunity come to life for them.
Yeah. This has been a really fun episode, and I cannot believe the next episode is going to be our last one. Jenn, it has been so much fun having you on. Thank you so much. Listeners, please like, follow, and subscribe wherever you are getting your podcast content, and we will see you on the next episode of Managed Chaos Podcast.
Outsourcing your US tech talent shouldn't be hard. With Pobble.io, we deliver high-quality teams on demand and provide huge cost savings to your business. Try it now at Pobble.io. Mention the amazing guys at Managed Chaos when you email us and get a free market data report. Email contact@Pobble.io.